Amidst the sprawling green pastures and the whispering winds of the small town of Prosperity Haven lies a tale that has become the stuff of legend. The story of Jet, a majestic black horse with unmatched intelligence and courage. Jet played a pivotal role in dismantling a dangerous criminal network, earning a place in history as more than just a remarkable animal. What made Jet so extraordinary? How did a horse become a symbol of hope and revolutionize police response protocols nationwide? Embark on this magical journey of bravery and discovery, and don't forget to like the video to begin unraveling the story. That night, the sky over Prosperity Haven stretched out like a velvet tapestry, scattered with shimmering stars. The small town was blanketed in a serene stillness, as if time itself had paused. The police station, located at the corner of Bliss Street and Harbor Road, stood as a modest yet sturdy building, its dim yellow light glowing faintly through the windows. Inside, Officer Charlotte Ann, her brown hair neatly tied in a low bun, sat at her desk, the soft glow of her desk lamp illuminating the cluttered pile of case files. Charlotte was accustomed to the quiet night shifts in Prosperity Haven, a place where emergencies were as rare as shooting stars. It was part of why she chose to work there after years in bustling cities. But tonight, the familiar tranquility was interrupted by an unusual sound, the rhythmic clatter of hooves just outside the station door. She raised an eyebrow, set her pen down, and listened intently. The sound continued, steady and deliberate. Charlotte stood up, her instincts kicking in. Probably just a stray horse from one of the nearby farms, she murmured, though she knew protocol required her to investigate. As she opened the door, the sight before her made her freeze in place. Under the bright moonlight stood a tall, striking horse with a sleek brown coat that shimmered like polished bronze. The horse had no saddle, no bridle. It was entirely unrestrained. But what caught Charlotte's attention most were its eyes, bright and piercing, almost as if they held a deep consciousness. The horse snorted softly, its ears pricked forward and stamped its hoof on the ground, the sharp sound echoing like a signal. Charlotte tilted her head, stepping closer cautiously, her gaze never leaving the enigmatic creature. "A stray horse, huh? What do you want?" she muttered, half to herself. At that moment, the horse let out a short whinny, turned, took a few steps forward, then stopped to look back at her. Its actions were deliberate, almost insistent. Charlotte couldn't help but chuckle. "What is this, lassie in horse form?" she joked, but the urgency in the horse's demeanor stopped her from dismissing it outright. Picking up her radio, she called her partner. "Alexander, you're not going to believe this. There's a horse outside the station that seems to be trying to lead me somewhere. I know it sounds crazy, but I think we need to follow it." On the other end of the line, Alexander Blake, her calm and witty partner, chuckled. "Charlotte, have you been watching too many movies?" he teased, but the sound of the horse's whinny in the background made him pause. "All right, stay put. I'll be right there." A few minutes later, Alexander appeared beside her. Tall and broad-shouldered, with slightly tousled blonde hair and sharp, observant eyes, he exuded a quiet confidence. Together they followed the horse, its confident gait leading them down the deserted Bliss Street. The old streetlights cast a soft golden glow, highlighting the uneven cobblestones beneath their feet. The horse moved with purpose, occasionally glancing back to ensure they were keeping up. When they slowed, it snorted impatiently, urging them on. "All right, lead the way, buddy," Charlotte muttered under her breath, a hint of amusement in her voice. Their journey ended at the abandoned Prosperity Haven warehouse, a relic from the town's industrial past. The brick walls were weathered and moss-covered, the shattered windows revealing a haunting emptiness inside. A rusted chain-link fence, partially cut open, surrounded the property. The horse stopped at the fence, pawing at the ground and letting out a loud, piercing neigh. Alexander shone his flashlight on the fence, crouching to inspect the freshly cut opening. His expression grew serious. "This just got a lot stranger," he said quietly. The horse stepped through the gap and led them further, its confident strides breaking through the tall grass that had taken over the lot. In the darkness they saw a side door to the warehouse, slightly ajar. Scratches marked the area near the handle, hoof marks, unmistakably left by their four-legged guide. Charlotte and Alexander instinctively placed their hands on their weapons, exchanging a tense glance. Charlotte nodded, signaling for Alexander to follow her lead. They entered the warehouse cautiously, the creaking door echoing in the stillness. Inside, the space was pitch dark, the beams of their flashlights slicing through the oppressive gloom. Old wooden shelves, decaying sacks, and scattered debris filled the room. The eerie sound of wind whistling through broken windows added to the unsettling atmosphere. The horse remained by the door, its soft snort seemingly signaling that its job was done. Charlotte's heart raced as she felt the weight of the unknown. She couldn't shake the feeling that the horse's actions were more than coincidence. It was as though it understood the gravity of the situation. Deeper into the warehouse, a faint noise broke the silence, a weak, muffled cry for help. Charlotte gestured for Alexander to check one side while she moved toward the source of the sound. In the dim glow of the flashlight, the building loomed like a different world, where time seemed to have stopped. The peeling walls, soaring ceilings, and tangled cables dangling like cobwebs gave it an eerie, abandoned feel. The cold air carried the stench of long-settled dust mingled with the sharp, acrid scent of chemicals, making Charlotte fight the urge to cover her nose. The tall horse, Jet, led the way cautiously, each step echoing with a heavy clop-clop against the empty concrete floor. Its long, tangled mane swayed gently with each movement, and its tail flicked lightly, as though brushing away something invisible in the air. Its ears stood upright, twitching at the faintest of sounds, as if Jet were preparing to react to any sudden anomaly. The long hallway led them past empty rooms, where shattered wooden door frames and silent, rusted cotton looms stood like witnesses to an era of industrial decline. In the flickering beam of the flashlight, layers of dust on every surface seemed to glow faintly, amplifying the desolation of the place. A chill ran down Charlotte's spine. Every footstep, along with the sound of Jet's hooves, echoed so loudly that it felt as if the entire building were secretly observing them. "There's something strange about the smell here," Charlotte whispered, glancing back at Alexander. He nodded in agreement, his eyes fixed on the horse. The sharp chemical odor became more pronounced the farther they went, blending with an oppressive sense of unease. Suddenly, Jet stopped in its tracks. Its ears perked higher, and its head snapped toward the end of the hallway, where a large metal door stood ominously as though guarding something hidden. Charlotte and Alexander froze, feeling the shift in the air. Jet's tail flicked nervously, and its sharp eyes glimmered with a warning. A faint moan broke the silence. Charlotte's breath hitched as she turned to Alexander. "Did you hear that?" she murmured. "Loud and clear," he replied, his voice low. Jet let out a sharp whinny, the sound reverberating through the desolate space, filled with caution and urgency. It moved quickly toward the door, stamping its hooves forcefully and scratching the metal surface with its hoof, leaving fresh marks amidst the older, weathered ones. Alexander approached, crouching to inspect the lock. "This lock is brand new," he observed, the flashlight beam illuminating a shiny padlock, a stark contrast to the rust and decay that dominated the rest of the building. Charlotte quickly pulled out her radio, her voice urgent yet steady. "We need immediate support at the old cotton mill. We've encountered suspicious activity." The moaning from behind the door grew louder, now accompanied by faint, desperate words. "Please, help!" Jet stomped its front hooves forcefully against the floor, almost as if urging Alexander to act. He glanced back at Charlotte, his expression resolute. "We don't have time to wait." Without hesitation, Alexander kicked the lock with all his strength. The metallic clang echoed through the tense atmosphere. On the third kick, the door swung open with a deafening bang. Their flashlights immediately illuminated a haunting scene. The room was filled with makeshift lab tables cluttered with bottles of chemicals, manufacturing tools, and scattered papers. The acrid chemical odor was overwhelming, forcing Charlotte to cover her nose with her sleeve. But the most jarring sight was in the corner of the room. 5 emaciated teenagers, their faces pale and gaunt, bound tightly with zip ties on a filthy mattress. Charlotte immediately recognized one of them. "Lily Grace," she whispered, her eyes wide. It was the girl who had been missing for 2 weeks from a nearby town. Jet trotted over to the frail blonde girl, lowering its head to gently nudge her hand. The girl looked up, her tear-streaked face lighting up with a glimmer of hope. "Jet! It's Jet!" she croaked, her voice breaking. "That's my horse. I didn't think it would find anyone, but I taught it to seek help." Charlotte hurried to check on the teenager's condition, while Alexander carefully examined the room to ensure there were no further threats. "Help is on the way," Charlotte reassured them, her voice calm but firm. Jet remained by Lily's side, as though aware its responsibility was not yet over. Its deep, intelligent eyes fixed on the hallway, ears still alert for any sound. Charlotte gripped her radio tightly, her voice decisive yet tense. "I need immediate medical assistance. Our location is—" She glanced at Alexander, who was methodically cutting the zip ties binding the teens. The dim surroundings were lit only by his small flashlight, casting its beam on the gaunt faces of the 4 boys trembling nearby. "You trained your horse to seek help?" Alexander asked, partly to diffuse the tension and partly in genuine amazement at the remarkable animal standing watch at the door. Within him, a growing sense of admiration mingled with awe for Jet's unwavering vigilance. "I've raised Jet since it was a foal," Lily Grace said through tears, her voice trembling with emotion. "I taught it to pull carts, navigate obstacles, and even alert me to danger. When we were taken at the park, Jet ran off. I didn't think it would, but it found campers nearby and led them back to help us." Alexander glanced out a dusty window, where headlights pierced through the trees outside, casting interwoven shadows on the crumbling walls of the building. The wind whistled through cracks, adding an eerie undertone to the scene. The floor beneath them was littered with grime, discarded syringes, and tangled medical tubing. In the corner, old medical monitors beeped faintly, amplifying the room's oppressive tension. Lily trembled as she warned, "They'll come back at 2 a.m. to check the results." Charlotte instantly glanced at her watch. 1:47 a.m. Time was running out. Charlotte's radio suddenly crackled, shattering the oppressive silence. A voice from the other end confirmed, "Backup will arrive in 5 minutes." But the sound of a vehicle engine stopping outside froze everyone in place. Alexander immediately signaled for the teenagers to head toward the rear exit. "Go quickly and stay silent," he said quietly but firmly. Charlotte bent down and picked up a metal rod lying nearby. "I'll hold them off," she whispered. Jet, as if sensing the danger, perked up its ears, its alert gaze fixed on the door. The hair along its mane stood on end, and its muscles tensed like a coiled spring ready to leap into action. "They're here," Lily whispered, her voice shaky but filled with trust in the courageous horse. The sound of footsteps grew closer, each step pounding on everyone's nerves like a drumbeat. Jet moved forward, its towering frame completely blocking the entrance. Understanding Jet's intention, Charlotte quickly took cover behind an old machine, ready for the worst. The creaky wooden door swung open, and 3 men stepped inside,